Feel it in the air. Everything is changing. A world wasted by fear.
Hey guys, Melissa and Aaron here.
Hello, we've reached the dangerous age of pre-crime where people are suspected before they become suspects, have committed any crime, or done anything wrong, yet still people use the most common excuse of, I have nothing to hide, I haven't done anything wrong.
That you are not a criminal, it's not a big deal.
Not a big
Yeah,
deal.
I've had people tell me that to my face before while reporting that this is all okay, this huge big data police state that they're encircling us with is fine because if you have nothing to hide and you haven't done anything wrong, the problem is that we are to a point now where you don't even know what is being used against you. Every dystopic future novel and movie you've ever seen has brought us to the point where we are right now, and we're living in it.
Extensive information gathering on every American. Human experiments with drugs and psychosurgery. Electronic surveillance. The era of the computer. Invasion of privacy. Growing government and corporate power over our lives. A people plagued by dehumanization, loneliness, and violence. Dramatic? Perhaps. But we are losing control of our technology and our lives.
This is what's going on. Minority Report in real life, how social media posts impact your threat rating. I bet you guys don't even realize that every single one of us has a threat rating. And no, I'm not talking about Homeland Security threat ratings. I'm talking about a threat rating that your local police department, which I guess is now going to be federalized pretty soon, will have if you dial 911 on you. You actually are getting a color-coded threat rating every time you encounter police.
And I think of it often as an iceberg. There's the little piece of 911 above the water line that is what the public and most of the public safety folks see. And below the water line, there's a massive infrastructure.
For example, your local police department is using numerous tools and applications that might determine how you get treated during a routine traffic stop or in response to your neighbor's call about loud music. One such application is known as Beware, because there are no routine calls.
Beware is a very robust, powerful, cloud-hosted, secure solution that quickly accesses a myriad of commercial data sources, public data sources, and presents a threat assessment during the short window of an emergency response.
This has been sold to police departments since 2012 and can be accessed on any internet-enabled device, so whatever they got in the car, tablets, smartphones, whatever. The app explores billions of records in social media postings, commercial and public databases for law enforcement needs, churning out risk profiles in real time using an algorithm. They give you a threat score.
Red would be a high threat alert, a yellow would be a modest but noteworthy threat alert, and a green is there is no threat alert. So we have a proprietary algorithm where we establish a threat score. It's almost like a credit report, only for an emergency responder,
which sends a rating to the police officer before they ever see you.
The officers can drill down if there is a red or yellow threat to get increasingly greater levels of detail.
When they're coming to your house, this Beware program sends an officer information about pretty much all kinds of stuff. It's so much more than just your police record or anything like that, okay? It's everyone who lives in your house, their cell phone numbers, their criminal history, the vehicles registered to the address, the threat rating, which is based on scanning all of your online comments on social media, and also recent purchases that have been processed for, quote, warning signs.
That they're taking from billions and billions of customer records.
And also we do deep web crawling and assess social media commentary, so there is a component in the threat score relative to the web and any comments that could be construed as offensive.
Quote, any comments that could be construed as offensive will contribute to your threat score. So for example, say you posted something on your Facebook page about how you think police brutality sucks, or you disagree with no-knock SWAT raids, or you think the CIA torture tactics are bad. Just let that run. It could be anything, right? And this information is not made available to you. You don't get to know what your threat rating is, what exactly it was based on, and you don't have any ability to dispute it because you don't even get to know what it is. Okay, it's like the no-fly list. You don't get to know why you're on it. You don't get to know what your threat rating is. An officer is already making a decision about who you are based on things like what you post on Facebook and Twitter, based on things like what you buy at the store with your credit card. You don't even get to know what that is. So by the time the officer sees you and you interact with this person, they're going to have a preconceived notion of who you are before they ever even see you.
I believe if you take what has been happening since in kind of our post 9/11 security world, what you're seeing is the establishment of surveillance society. You're seeing the establishment of a surveillance network.
Life on the ledger. We can make money off your life, the data of your life, even when you have no money of your own. In coming years, millions of people will be issued digital identities, whether they choose to or not. These identities, also known as self-sovereign or decentralized identities, will capture information about a person's interactions with other people, the government, public services, and also with the built environment via Internet of Things sensors. Examples of the Internet of Things, or IoT, include smartphones, tablets and laptops, smart utility meters, trash cans, streetlights, sensors embedded in bikes, street furniture, playground equipment and pavement, easy pass transponders, barcodes, QR codes, and RFID chips embedded in ID and payment cards, and even in a person's body. Life will be recorded as a series of transactions on blockchain. Each digital identity becomes a shadow self comprised of data. Some data points are significant, like a birth certificate. However, many other bits of data will be used to fill out the shadow self, bits most people aren't even conscious they're creating. These bits are simply metadata, exhaust thrown off as we live our routine, digitally mediated lives.
In my research, 2018, the state of Illinois had a blockchain task force working group, and the PDF is still online. You can find it. And so they were talking about different use cases for blockchain, and it went well beyond the finances. Although their goal is actually that you'll have programmable money, and you'll have money that it's not just usable for anything. And this is generally understood now within the central bank digital currency discussion. It wasn't at the beginning of the lockdowns. But one of the use cases, and this is about managed behavior change, was that they were talking about, the state of Illinois, what would happen if you put SNAP benefits on blockchain, okay? And because you would want to ensure wellness, people's wellness. And you can see that even at the beginning stages of the media discussion. We're going to be moving towards a wellness and prevention protocol, right? And so they were already laying the groundwork, especially in Black and brown communities, the wellness, right? Your enforced wellness behaviors. And so they would give you SNAP, and then they would start to incentivize that you make the healthy choice, right? And so if you bought the hamburger, it would be full price. But if you bought the apple, then they would ding you a little extra bonus money in your account, right? And people might look at that and go, oh, well, that seems fair. We want people to be healthy. People should eat good food. But at the same time, and they had a little diagram for it. Like they showed exactly, here's your digital wallet, here's your digital citizenship, here's the smart contract, and as we, more and more over the last couple years, you don't even get a checkout person, right? A self-checkout, it's already all decided with the barcodes. It wasn't taking into account, well, maybe you live in a food desert, maybe you work 3 jobs, maybe you're living in the back of a car, and then why is the government telling me what kind of food I'm allowed to have? I mean, there are a number of elements in there. And then also the presumption that at some point, they're not going to cut the benefits so that you have to make the right choice to get to the end of the month, right? Because that's how it always works. They'll be like, oh, well, we're cut the budget. Oh, well, look, we have this overage. Well, maybe we won't incentivize it so much. So it's forcing people into making the good choice among impossible choices. It literally could be impossible. And so when I'm looking at that in terms of these smart contracts, and you're enforcing behaviors that are actually impossible, within smart environments, and it's completely dehumanized because you don't have access.
You might be thinking that this kind of authoritarian, a little bit far-fetched, and you might be thinking that this kind of authoritarian control over your money is not going to be anything that we'll see in the future. Unfortunately, this is already implemented in the world. In China, the government is already able to program what its citizens can and cannot spend their money on. Over the last few years, they've limited millions of people's ability to buy things like train tickets, passports, and luxury goods. They're able to do this because of China's intense social credit system that links each person's identity and actions to their bank account, allowing the government to see and to control everything a citizen does with their money. And it seems like the West is paying attention. In nations like Sweden, South Africa, and Canada, trials of programmable central bank currencies are already underway. In fact, almost half of the world's nations are at some stage of implementing this kind of programmable money, meaning no matter where in the world you live, this technology is likely only a few years away. Okay, so how does programmable money tie in with the personal carbon limit? Well, it all comes down to whether or not you've gone over your monthly usage, and if you have, there are two possible case scenarios for that. The most openly talked about penalty for a person going over their individual carbon limit is that they'd simply get charged for doing so, just the same as what happens to large companies today. Taken too many car trips this month, or bought a little bit too much meat? In that case, you'd simply get a bill at the end of each month from your government, so you can pay the price of being a naughty citizen. As your entire carbon usage would be tracked by a government CBDC, there would be no way to hide how much carbon you've used. And since they now also hold the keys to your money, they won't even need to send you a bill for your excess usage. Potentially, they'll just automatically pull your fine from your bank account.
So this is going to be linked to what I call pay for success finance. And, you know, I'm sort of your ambassador from the city of brotherly love to say that all is not right with, you know, like our understanding of democracy, because these things were coming out of Philadelphia and out of Wharton Business School and out of something called the Global Impact Investment Network, GIIN, GIN, which is sort of like the genie, GIN. And that was set up under the Rockefeller Foundation in the lead up to the last global economic crash. And it was set up by Judith Rodin, who was the former president of University of Pennsylvania. And then she moved on to Rockefeller and got that all set up. And now she's moved on again, and there's a new head of Rockefeller. But she rolled all this out. And these impact metrics are connected to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And again, I'm someone who, I like riding bikes. I like farmers markets. I like clean air. I like all these things superficially but they're going to be tied into financial markets that run on data and data analytics and smart environments. So in order to have a clean environment and solve poverty, we'll have to cover everything in smart dust and run it from space and engineer everyone's behavior.
The world's first blockchain baby was born in Tanzania. The baby's healthcare costs were recorded in a digital ledger, establishing its fundamental indebtedness. Aid Tech, an NGO, assigned baby and mother digital identities. Farm Access, another NGO, added the first round of data, logging their development aid provided prenatal care on blockchain.
Okay, so they're tracking, they gave the baby a blockchain ID, they gave the mom a blockchain ID, they gave the hospital ID, and then they track the prenatal compliance. And again, I think women should have, access to affordable prenatal care, right? But it should also be care that fits with their choice. And I think we all know that there's a lot of different approaches to the birth process now. And so a lot of this was in Africa and tied to global pharmaceutical companies, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the birth of that baby is already fixed with the score of the mother's compliance or non-compliance to that established protocol, right? Which again, may or may not be that person's choice, and the same with education space, other things, right? Like we don't all have the same choices and we should not all be forced to. But this through line goes, okay, maybe this baby will be addicted or incarcerated or unemployed or have mental illness. And all those have assignments, like cost, we've heard for years and years, it costs this much to house an incarcerated person, right? They decide it all by third grade test scores. All of this narrative has been in place for so long because now they're going to dial back the prison population in terms of creating an open air prison because they can just incarcerate you with your digital identity. So this is all, and all of it is tied into the smart contracts. The smart contract would be between the nurse practitioner who's doing your wellness appointment and linking it into your blockchain health record. Like all of these layers, and then your future rights and privileges may depend on something that like happened before you were born, or something that happened to you 10 years ago that's already labeled you on a permanent distributed ledger that shapes how you can function in society with one another and with the built environment. Because now we're looking at geofencing, because some of these smart contracts are going to literally be run from outer space by satellites. And so when you, like Jason said, try to get the Uber, try to open the door, try to go to the grocery store, try to access the smart Internet of Things bike, it's all going to be predicated on what your contractual relationship is. And you may have 50 of them a day. And all of that data gets then fed back into your profile, right? Like, oh, you tried to rent the bike, but you knew you weren't allowed to rent the bike. So we checked that. That's on your permanent record. You know, and it's very insidious because it's framed as liberation, right? It's framed as convenience. But all of the data is then fitted into your profile to say, okay, well, if you end up like with mental illness, like this is your past profile, and then it informs everything moving forward.
Will not be tolerated. Dissent may result in your digital identity being flagged or erased altogether. The masters of tech and finance are trying to convince the public that blockchain will be a gift of empowerment, knowing that the only power it will actually give people is to sell their human capital at a loss. We need a counter-narrative that explains how this might actually work. Smartphone apps built on blockchain technology permit the exchange of data and currency. Non-monetary digital assets can be identified using colored tokens. Access is often provided through a digital e-wallet, secured using biometric authentication from fingerprints, retinal scans, facial recognition, vascular patterns, or even one's heartbeat. E-wallets store health records, education credentials, birth certificates, voting records, land ownership records, public benefit access, rights and privileges, cryptocurrency, and any other debt or asset that can be represented virtually by a token. Note, e-wallets record tokenized debt. Impact investors need for us to adopt technologies like these wallets that create interoperable data exchanges. Such platforms will allow them to track impacts across different aspects of a person's life. For example, did the education intervention they invested in also yield benefits to a person's health or housing status? They want credit for that. Did the health intervention for a child improve their education and workforce outcomes? They want credit for that. They need all of the data in one place to enhance the data analysis and predictive analytics for future investments. They want all the credit for conducting microsurveillance of our lives, and they are using blockchain to say that all of the data is private and thus we shouldn't mind. Financial titans hope blockchain can catalyze widespread adoption of pay-for-success government contracting as an efficient platform for data capture and exchange of debt and profit. But success must first be redefined in simple data-driven terms that serve social impact investment markets. In this game, success simply means moving numbers in the correct direction on a data dashboard. Concepts like growth, value added, and impact are not about helping people actually obtain a better quality of life, but simply a means by which to turn life into numbers. Numbers to serve the global financial gambling syndicate, not people in need. Once metrics are set, human services like healthcare and education will be reverse engineered so that aggregated data will automatically trigger impact payments to global banking interests after verification is made on blockchain. A few examples. A pregnant mother signs up for an online parenting webinar. It becomes logged on an app. There's a token transfer. A baby hits a target weight goal. Log in on an app, token transfer. A toddler attends a day of preschool. Log in on an app, token transfer. A student uses their educational savings account, checks in at a community makerspace, token transfer. An opportunity youth, a high school dropout, as yet unemployed, is awarded an industry credential, token transfer. A pre-diabetic patient meets their Fitbit target for the month, token transfer. A person who has been incarcerated completes an online behavioral therapy program, token transfer. A veteran participates in a virtual reality therapy session. Token transfer. A person with unstable housing registers for a digital wallet. Token transfer. Digital platforms like an electronic health record will algorithmically monitor service providers and clients for compliance, nudging their actions towards the cheapest method of delivering the agreed-upon impacts. The process could be managed through smart contracts that are legal documents written in computer code. These contracts automatically transfer payments to and from electronic wallets after assurances that agreements have been met are entered into the blockchain ledger. However, blockchain systems could be used to discipline those needing services. For example, an Internet of Things pill cap indicates a pregnant woman is not regularly taking prenatal vitamins. She is logged as non-compliant and finds it nearly impossible to get a follow-up appointment. A baby does not hit a developmental milestone, and the family is compelled to accept an in-home monitoring system. Parents refuse to enroll their toddler in a subsidized franchise preschool and are flagged by the Department of Human Services as being at a heightened risk of neglect and subjected to a program of home visits. Behavioral biometric algorithms send erroneous cheating alerts to parents of hundreds of cyber high school seniors whose transcripts are held pending outside review. An apprentice at an advanced manufacturing plant falls ill, is unable to scan in for 2 weeks, and is subsequently barred from completing the program or enrolling in other comparable training. A diabetic patient falls and twists her ankle. Unable to meet the activity level required by her fitness tracker, her insurance company denies her claim to cover replacement therapeutic shoes. A person who is incarcerated completes their online education modules but does it inconsistently. This triggers a problematic behavior code that results in the person being denied parole. A veteran finds that virtual reality goggles prescribed to treat her chronic depression instead make her feel ill and disoriented. After discontinuing the assigned treatment protocol, she is refused access to other non-digital therapies. An elderly man who has unstable housing misplaces his smartphone, and even when he has it, he gets anxious about using the benefits app. He often goes hungry because he is nervous about being turned away at the community feeding center. Tokenizing human behavior so that it can be placed on blockchain and subjected to control by algorithms is a dehumanizing process grounded in digital surveillance and micro-oversight. It pushes social and financial relations onto devices to ease collection of impact data for pay-for-success contracts. Ruthless financiers oversee at arm's length systems that have been structured to break people and then profit from so-called fixing the victims on the cheap, awarding them sub-market pay for their labor and supplying just enough income to keep them from dying. Meanwhile, complicit nonprofits and benefit corporations beholden to corporate philanthropy provide quote-unquote successful services that will push volumes of data onto blockchain. They will work hand in hand with the government to outsource public services through pay-for-success contracts. Entities like Strive Together, a national partnership program, will be one of those gearing up to coordinate wraparound services for so-called community schools. That is simply how this machine will work.
Collaborative action help a community get better results for youth and families? Just look at Norwalk Acts in Norwalk, Connecticut. Collaborative action is when members of a partnership collectively adopt the tools and processes and build the necessary knowledge and skills to make powerful contributions that shift policies, practices, resources, and power structures leading to equitable cradle-to-career outcomes. Norwalk Acts, a Strive Together network member focused on child outcomes, set a goal to ensure that children in Norwalk, Connecticut enter kindergarten ready to learn. Historically, there was little infrastructure or system for consistently screening young children in Norwalk across different sectors, from birth to when they enter kindergarten. Norwalk Acts and its members focus specifically on implementing a standardized process for screening, tracking, and promoting child development across early childhood service sectors, by increasing the use of developmental screening with the Ages and Stages questionnaire, a developmental screening tool. They developed strategies, partnerships, and a continuous improvement model to engage the community. The work started small to identify points of failure and pivot accordingly. They engaged 23 community partners at each developmental touchpoint to complete ASQ screenings with children and their parents. As home visiting agencies taught parents how to use the tool, they equipped parents to be their child's very best first teacher. With the entire community focused on the same goals and shifting practices accordingly, kindergarten readiness increased 7 percentage points over the course of 2 school years. Learn more at strivetogether.org.
It will be carried out with innovative voucher programs like digital education savings accounts or health accounts. Digital wallets will serve as gatekeepers, controlling access to public services and monitoring all of the data to determine what quote-unquote works. As the grip of big data tightens, global finance enthusiastically pitches blockchain as a way for precarious workers to mine value from their souls. They want to frame it as a choice. Become an entrepreneur, curate your precarious life, and sell your personal brand to targeted marketing campaigns and philanthrocapitalists. Meanwhile, the government and their private security consultants would monitor your digital footprint for evidence of disillusionment and dissent, adjusting your opportunity score accordingly. Would the poor have a choice about how their blockchain data is accessed? Can the masses refuse to be reduced to an impact metric? Will the wealthy be the only ones to be able to lock down their data ownership in perpetuity? With Swiss bankers, venture capitalists, technology interests, and foundations plotting out futures for blockchain babies, a counter-narrative is required. These are my musings on what it might mean to live life on the blockchain ledger. Picture a warehouse, one with infinite storage capacity. Everything in it is index searchable and ready for analysis. A child's first set of shelves in their warehouse is populated with data from family members. That data determines a baby's initial human capital score. Systems crunch the data to predict the amount of services that will be required to fix the child to serve the needs of the machine, and therein lies the investment opportunity. Days and years pass with digital dust filtering steadily into each child's warehouse, off-gassed bits of data from the life monitoring technologies in their homes, classrooms, doctors' offices, libraries, cars, and even playgrounds. Layers of data build up, each bit insignificant on its own, the full value of the deposit realized only after it has become deep enough for mining. Where a person goes, how they travel, what they buy, what level of education they attain, what skills they have, the nature of work they do or don't do, the amount of debt they carry, the public services they consume, if they maintain their health, if they have problems with addiction, if their housing is insecure, if they have entanglements with the law, the relationships they maintain, their social network, layer upon layer growing deeper and deeper. Access to that data is through a locked door open with a biometric key. Each door features an individual avatar and 3 numbers that change as new data is added. The first number is a risk score, a prediction about how closely the person will conform to social norms. The second number is an opportunity score, a prediction of how easily the person can be molded to meet those norms based on their response to past interventions. The third number is an impact score, a number representing the cumulative return on public investment that have been made in that indentured individual to date. The 3 numbers feed to a digital barcode. Next, imagine there exists an Uber warehouse that contains all of the other warehouses and is patrolled by automated AI investors with scanners looking to maximize profit on social impact investment portfolios. These capital for good AI investors roam the warehouse, scanning the variables on all the doors to determine whether or not an individual merits being added to a portfolio, and if so, what level of investment is possible. If you are a very wealthy person who has no need for public services, including public education, perhaps you turn off access to your numbers. This protects you from scrutiny, and your data never needs to be opened up to anyone. If you're a person who's managing but needs access to job opportunities or to upgrade your position, your numbers are open to field offers from investors, and if you obtain an attractive arrangement, you may be willing to sign on to a smart contract and negotiate how much access to your impact data you will allow. But say you're a desperately poor person, or even worse, a person with a low return on investment, perhaps someone deemed too risky. There is no profit in people who are labeled unfixable, and in such cases that door is left wide open in case an investor might wander in, look around, and offer some scraps of value in return for your data. Blockchain is not a tool of freedom, but rather one of discipline and domination. As a mechanism of social control, it will be used to push lean production. As a mechanism of innovative finance, it will intensify artificial intelligence-mediated algorithmic trading. As a mechanism of predictive profiling, it will amplify structural racism and escalate the ongoing oppression of Black and brown communities. While blockchain is presented as a perfect method by which to monetize the data of our lives, we must pause and consider if that is the type of life we actually want. Do we want to be isolated from one another, competing for increasingly scarce resources, our only relations tied to currency transactions? We can still choose to reject it. We can elect instead to build systems with open doors that unite us in community and care for the planet, rather than isolating us in piles of our own dehumanized data. We are more than the sum of our digital exhaust. It is time that we began a campaign of non-cooperation before the blockchain catches up with us. For additional information, go to wrenchinthegears.com.
The bank has manipulated events to destroy the institutions of Christian civilization, religion, God, race, nation, and family, and induct humanity into their cult. This is the New World Order. They instigated and financed wars to destroy the nations, and then hyped the authors that spread alienation and disillusionment. They hold humanity prisoner by their mind control. It's no coincidence that the mass media is controlled by a handful of corporations with occult logos.